Welcome to Infertility Stories, a podcast about what it's really like to go through infertility while you're still in it. Hosted by us, Miriam and Elise, two women who became friends through years of trying to conceive. Coming up on today's episode, you are waiting to find out whether or not your whole life is potentially going to change. There's always that possibility.
And that's exactly it. Like, there's always this little bit of hope or a little bit of a question. When you're trying to conceive, it's not only that you're waiting for something, it's this waiting for something that you really want. This period of time where you could be both pregnant and not pregnant at the same time, and both are just as true, and you don't know which is true, both are true.
It's mentally exhausting to navigate the two.
I'm gonna look for something that I can control, something that I can know, and whether that's my thoughts or whether that's something that I can do.
Fuck it, this is so hard. If you just accept, okay, I am in an anxious period. How can I support myself during an anxious period of time?
In some ways, similar to accepting the anxiety is where you trust that you can handle the emotions. I'm just going to assume it's going to be another 3 years, then I'm not waiting for it all the time and I'm living less from cycle to cycle. Try and count to 100 times not opening the app when I wanted to. I never made it to 100, I can tell you. I've been telling myself every day that is day 3 of my luteal phase.
And then the response is, but what if I am? But you're probably not. But what if I am? But you're probably not. Over and over again.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Today we want to talk a little bit about the 2-week wait. This is one of the times of the month and of every cycle that I personally find very challenging. Today we wanted to talk a little bit about this and why it is so challenging, some strategies that we might have to make it easier or to help ourselves through the 2-week wait, and anything else that comes up. So I'd say let's dive into it.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, maybe for anyone who's listening who might have a friend or family member who's going through infertility or who isn't aware of this period of time, the 2-week wait is typically the 14 days between ovulation and the start of your period, where you are waiting to be able to take a pregnancy test or waiting to see if your period arrives to know whether or not you're pregnant. It's this period of fertilization, implantation, and development of a blastocyst and future embryo. So what makes this period so challenging for people who are trying to conceive?
I think it is exactly what you were saying. It's the waiting. It's this waiting period. And this is the time of the month where there's actually not so much you can do. You can't really influence the situation. You just know that something might be happening. It might also not be happening. And you're just waiting. And if you're waiting, 2 weeks is a long time.
A definite, yeah. I mean, one thing that I have to say off the bat about the 2-week wait for me, and I think that this might be the case for other people who are struggling with infertility too, is that for me, it hasn't always been a 2-week wait. Because my luteal phase, so the phase between ovulation and my period, is a bit short. So it's typically more like 9 days for me, which is actually a lot, like 5 whole days less is a lot of time. And so I actually haven't really had to experience a full 2-week wait usually, because often my period comes before I can even take a pregnancy test, or, I'll take an early pregnancy test and then my period will be there the next day. So for me, it's been more of a 9 to 10 day wait, not quite the full 2 weeks, but still it can feel like an absolute eternity when you are waiting to find out whether or not your whole life is potentially going to change. And I think I was thinking about this in terms of any other situation in life where maybe you're waiting to hear back from a job interview and whether you're going to have to start a whole new job or move to a different location or, something that's really going to change your whole life depending on what the result is. And for people who are trying to conceive and who are going through infertility, there's this huge life-changing question mark over their heads for half the month of every month that they're going through it, which
for years, possibly.
Yeah, for years of uncertainty, unknown, and waiting for a specific outcome or result that you literally, you can never know. If you've tried that month, you can never know truly that even if you convince yourself that it's not going to happen, there's always that possibility, I think.
And that's exactly it. Like, there's always this little bit of hope or a little bit of a question. I like this analogy of the job interview. I think the same in the Netherlands, housing is always a big issue. So if you want to buy a house, it's a big struggle. And it's the same where your whole life is changing and you really might really want something. You might really felt at home at a house that you visited. And then you're hoping that you'll get it, but you're not sure and you have to wait. And usually that's a couple of days. Whoever is in such a situation, you can relate to this waiting and how long it can be to not be able to do something, just this waiting. When you're trying to conceive, it's not only that you're waiting for something, it's like it's this waiting for something that you really want. It's not just a job interview that's going to change your life. It's a job interview that you really want that is going to change your life if it happens. And then at the same time, if you've been trying to conceive for a while, then a lot of different emotions will come up in that waiting and in this time frame. So it's not like you're hoping, but you also don't want to be disappointed. So you're trying not to hope too much, maybe. So there's a lot of different things going on. And I don't remember exactly what it was like for me in the beginning when I started trying to conceive, but I've heard from friends that got pregnant quite quickly that even for them, this 2-week wait or however many days it is, even when you just started, is this like you can't wait for the days to come by. So if you've been doing that for a long time, for months or years, then the load is even stronger. And it is this loop kind of that you are in every cycle again. It's not just one time, it's every month or every time that you have a cycle. It's this loop all the time and you have to go through it. Like it's not possible to avoid it, basically.
Yeah, you have to wait. There's no way of getting the knowledge or information sooner. It's just a requirement of the process, which is really challenging. Another thing that makes the 2-week wait so challenging is the symptom guessing and questioning. The fact that pregnancy symptoms and premenstrual symptoms are literally the exact same for the most part. It's very hard to distinguish the two. So trying to interpret, could this be pregnancy or could this be just my period coming, is so difficult. And I know that you've experienced that a lot recently, Elisa. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
So for me, these symptoms became stronger after having surgery. So that has even made this experience stronger, and it also had connected a different layer to it. So in the past, it was just the symptoms like, is this my cycle? Is this just my normal hormonal changes in the luteal phase? Or is this something which is related to potential pregnancy? So like the breast changes, maybe spotting, other symptoms that I would have. But now, since I had the surgery, I have other symptoms as well, which I also had when I was having the ectopic pregnancy. So that brings to me a whole new layer of stress, because it's a reminder, like these physical symptoms, they bring you back to that state. So since I had my surgery, I have back pain, I have pain in my hips and my legs, like in different places, which I didn't have before. But now sometimes as soon as my ovulation has happened, I start to have these pains. And like I said, because they remind me so much of the ectopic pregnancy, they can also scare me a little bit, just because of the emotional load that is connected to them.
Yeah, it's like that experience of the body remembering something and then it's kind of putting you back into that place again, which sounds really challenging emotionally and physically.
So generally also the luteal phase can be a little bit harder part of the cycle. Even when you're not trying to conceive, this might be the time of the month where you're not on your top level.
Yeah, the luteal phase or the premenstrual phase is also a phase of heightened hormonal challenge, let's put it. You are dealing with a kind of rise in progesterone, hopefully, if everything's working properly, and other hormones that can lead to more emotional symptoms where perhaps a lot of people deal with PMS where they are easily angered or frustrated, have heightened sensory sensitivities, things that wouldn't typically annoy you or bother you at all suddenly become absolutely unbearable. And for anyone dealing with premenstrual dysphoric disorder, I think it's PMDD, it's an especially challenging time of the month where you can even kind of be losing a sense of yourself and who you are, and dealing with multiple symptoms. So it's a challenging time anyway. You've got physical symptoms like breast tenderness, soreness, tiredness, and then emotional symptoms like irritability, or you're maybe more likely to cry or get upset about things that wouldn't typically upset you. Just you're already in this more fragile, sensitive state. So then combining that with the waiting period, it's like layers upon layers of challenge that people are going through when they're in that 2-week wait period.
For me, what I noticed a couple of cycles when I took progesterone in this phase as well, like in the luteal phase, I would take additional progesterone, and I noticed that even stronger. So the emotional symptoms were even more highlighted. So one of the things that I would love to talk about a little bit in that regard as well is with IVF and IUI, you usually take progesterone or other hormones as well during this phase. So that might make the whole process even different. I don't have any personal experience with either one. You did a couple of IUIs. Did you notice a difference in that?
What was interesting is that you would think that taking the progesterone would, like you say, for you, that maybe heightened the symptoms. For me, I think because I am actually dealing with likely estrogen dominance, which can then diminish your progesterone levels, I'm dealing with a hormone imbalance where taking progesterone actually helped me feel better in the luteal phase. And for example, I would often get quite a lot of migraines during the luteal phase. When I was taking progesterone, I noticed that my energy levels and the frequency of the migraines that I was experiencing was much lower, or it felt lower. So for me, I felt really good with the progesterone, but I think that's because my body was lacking it. For someone who has normal progesterone levels, taking progesterone can then lead to other symptoms like feeling excessively tired or emotional. But again, I only have my experience, which was pretty positive, honestly, of taking the progesterone. But I think that's helpful for people to hear too, that it's
Definitely.
not all negative when you take these additional supplements and hormone treatments. It's not always all bad.
No, definitely it can be very helpful. I was thinking about why is this so hard, and it reminded a little bit of this Schrödinger's cat, which is about a cat which is in a locked box or so, and as long as you don't open the box, the cat could be both dead and alive at the same time. I think that's
Is it kind of like a philosophical experiment or something? Until you open the box, it's both. Yeah.
Yes. So it's something like that. For me, I was reminded of that. The 2-week wait is this point in the cycle, and especially if you're doing IVF and you have this, like there is the embryo transfer, especially in that case, but even in any cycle, it's this period of time where you could be both pregnant and not pregnant at the same time, and both are just as true. And you don't know which is true. Both are true. And so also you're hopeful and not hopeful at the same time. You're balancing these two things, assuming that both are true somehow. And it might, at least for me, that goes from one to the other. And it depends also from cycle to cycle. Some cycles I'm like, I can let it go completely. Some cycles I'm 100% sure I'm pregnant. Sometimes I'm 100% sure I'm not pregnant. And some cycles I'm more like from moment to moment changing between the two. But yeah, I have this feeling that in this luteal phase, in this part of the cycle, we're really just pregnant and not pregnant at the same time, at least to our mind and how we have to deal with it. So in the follicular phase, you're not pregnant. You always know you're not pregnant. But in the luteal phase, both are true at the same time.
And if you think about the way that our brains work, like need for certainty and clarity and is so important, and then being forced to kind of live in this between state of being two things at the same time, really, really difficult for the way that our minds work. And we want that kind of known and unknown, that clarity and certainty. And so I think that is why our brains tend towards wanting to really lean towards one or the other. It's mentally exhausting to navigate the two at the same time.
Yeah, it's this lack of predictability, and it's really the phase where this in-between that comes trying to conceive is highlighted. Like, this is the phase where you're most in between the two, and it's least predictable.
Yeah, it's reminding me too of often when you go for a medical appointment, if you need an x-ray or if you need some kind of procedure and they ask you, is there a chance you could be pregnant? And it's just like, there's so much that changes depending on the answer to that. Whether or not you can go ahead and have this x-ray or this MRI or whatever it is, it's all kind of contingent on the answer to that question. And that's one of those things that can be an extra difficult question when you're trying to conceive.
Definitely. I wanted to go to a sauna, to a bathhouse here last weekend, and I was like, I'm not sure I can go or not, because if you're pregnant, then you're not allowed to go, or at least you have to be very careful about the temperature. And the same with alcohol and other things that you might be avoiding them already in general, but it might also be that in the luteal phase, that's more like, okay, I'm not sure. Can I do this? Can I not do this? I think for me that the lack of predictability and the lack of being able to do something highlights I'm going to look for something that I can control, something that I can know, and whether that's my thoughts or whether that's something that I can do. And in the end, you can't do anything. And that's so hard. Like, at least for me, that's very hard, that I can't really influence the outcome. I just have to accept that whatever happens, happens.
I think that is so crucial, that lack of control leading to a need for a sense of control, and the way that can really influence the way that we're thinking during this period of time and the way that we're acting. That reminds me too, I remember a friend of mine talking about, I guess she was in the 2-week wait and she was avoiding drinking alcohol, but I don't think she'd been trying very long. So for her, it was like this memorable moment of the time that she couldn't have a beer. And I was like, that's cute, because that's been my whole life for the past few years, is like, I'm not kind of fondly reminiscing about that time that I, one time didn't have a beer at the bar. It's like, talk about like my whole life.
Months and years of not having a drink at the bar.
Or not having coffee or tea or caffeine, all of these things. It is really hard, even if you're just trying for a few months. I think, like you said, a lot of people find this period really hard. So it's just, then imagine that extended over months and months and years. It's really, really challenging.
It's all these layers of restriction that come with that for months and months and years as well, that are just continuing. Yeah. And I think from the outside, it might also look a bit obsessive, maybe. So I can imagine that if you hear that somebody is not drinking a glass of wine because they're in the 2-week wait, you might be like, oh, come on, you can have a glass of wine. Don't worry. Why are you stressing about that? You'll get pregnant anyways. Have some fun, enjoy life. Mm-hmm. But then if you have been trying to conceive for a while, or then for some people also in the beginning already, of course, but then you want to minimize the risks. You have to, or like it feels like you have to. It's not like you can just say, forget about it for a bit. I'm just going to have fun and not think about it. Or you can, but it's very hard.
Mm. Yeah. On the flip side, I've definitely experienced times when I'm like, fuck it, this is so hard. And I need to give up on trying for a little while, trying to be so careful, or, be careful about everything I do, everything I eat, everything I drink, because it's exhausting, especially when it's not yielding results and you're just continually cycle after cycle not getting pregnant.
Yeah. I think actually it can be a helpful approach for sure. I'm not sure the approach of not doing all these things is definitely the best approach, But I think it's a natural result. And I guess somewhere in between is the best solution. It's probably not going to be helpful to give up on everything for years and years. Like we already talked about, I think in the first episode as well, where you're thinking like, oh, I can't go on this trip because I might be pregnant. I'm not going to plan this thing. I'm not going to change this job. I'm not going to do this or that because I might be pregnant. If you cancel all the parties that you might want to go to or all the activities with friends or family or whatever that you might want to do, just because something might be happening, and then, you're going to give up so much. So it's about the balance, I guess, which is...
Yeah, exactly. Eventually, you have to find a way to not be kind of missing out all the time.
Yeah.
But also managing your health and fertility and well-being and possibility of conceiving. So it's a difficult line to tread.
Yeah, and definitely not a black and white situation or a clear-cut answer. It really depends on you as a person and what's important for you. And I mean, not like, is it important enough for you to try and conceive, so then you should give up everything, but more like, what are you able to give up while being in a situation where you can enjoy life as well?
Yeah, 100%.
So what are some of the strategies that you have tried for getting through the 2-week wait?
Well, I know one thing that I have found helpful, or I think other people have found helpful, is the idea of just not trying to resist the fact that it is an anxious period. The anxiety doesn't need to become a problem if you just accept, okay, I am in an anxious period. How can I support myself during an anxious period of time? What is going to make this easier for me, rather than trying to push down or avoid the anxiety or push down and forget that this is the period of time that you're in, and instead just trying to support yourself through it. I think that can be helpful, like just not running away from it, basically. I would say for myself also that as time has gone on, I am increasingly just assuming that I'm not pregnant, and I'm not expecting to be pregnant. And of course, every cycle, some kind of symptom or sign will happen that will make me question, maybe I am, and I'll start daydreaming and imagining. And in our episode with Asha last time, she shared about how she is like letting herself daydream and just enjoying that. For me, I personally have found that really like kind of tempering my expectations and lowering my expectations has been helpful, but that has only come about as a result of years now of trying to conceive, and like month after month of negative, or not even negative tests, but just getting my period before I even have the chance to take a test. I do find personally that is a bit easier for me, because again, it's not being in the in-between, it's more of a certainty or expectation that I feel quite sure that it's not going to work. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it sounds kind of depressing, and honestly it is, but that's just where I've come to after this longer period of time. And I think that as I start getting into more treatments and proactive interventions, then I will start feeling expectant again and hopeful, and I'll be back into that anxiety phase. But for now, the chances of me conceiving feel so low that assuming it's not happening is what I found to be easiest to cope with mentally.
Yeah, it's kind of reducing that swing of emotions going from one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
I like what Asha was saying about the dreaming, and I think that's in some ways similar to accepting the anxiety, is where you in both situations trust that you can handle the emotions. But of course, if you dream, then the risk is that afterwards you are disappointed, so you have to have both sides of the emotions, and so you're going back and forth. Whereas if you're deciding I'm probably not pregnant, or assuming I'm probably not pregnant, then you have less of this emotional roller coaster that you're going through each cycle.
Yeah, I've kind of had this vision of if your mind is like a dog on a leash, like letting the dog run off a little bit and explore, but it's still on a leash. Like,
yeah,
I'm letting my mind imagine, oh, how great would that be? What would I do? How would I respond if this happened? While kind of being tethered to like, it's probably not going to happen, but I'll let myself wonder a little bit, rather than like completely letting the dog run free and just go wild and like no tethering to any kind of lower expectation.
Yeah, so you're not designing the baby room yet, although I've also heard that for some people is actually very helpful, like this kind of manifesting, envisioning it, giving it an outlet as well, doing something that can bring you in that direction and that you can do now, which is more practical than just the waiting.
Yeah, definitely.
For me, I remember that at some point, really, it helped me so much to focus on the long term. And I think that's similar to what you're saying. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to assume it's going to be another 3 years. Then I'm not waiting for it all the time. And I'm living less from cycle to cycle, less from luteal phase to luteal phase, and more just living my life long term. And I guess that's where I was at kind of last year. When I got pregnant the first time, I was like, okay, we'll see how long it takes. I just assume that I'm not going to get pregnant, at least not now. And then I got pregnant. And so this year in January, when we started trying again, I realized that I feel like I have to start from the beginning again. I have to go back to figuring out how to deal with this. I've been trying to get back to a state where I'm assuming anything and trying to go back to a state where I'm not over-analyzing every symptom, worrying. The last couple of months have been less stable than they were before I got pregnant last year, where like one cycle I had the progesterone and I was emotionally in a very bad place. Another cycle I was 100% sure I was pregnant. Another cycle I was 100% sure I'm not pregnant. So it's going more to different places at the moment, but I'm definitely having a harder time again now with luteal phase than I had last year. Just because, there's some hope again.
Which makes sense, right? If you have 3 years of no positive pregnancy test, then making the assumption that you've got another 3 years of no positive pregnancy test is based on the evidence that you have. Then if you have 2 pregnancies back to back with only a couple of cycles in between, then the evidence that you have is, okay, it's going to happen again within a few months. So it makes a lot of sense that we're mentally pacing based on the evidence that we have so far.
Yes.
So naturally, there's going to be a lot more anticipation when you have had multiple positive tests, and that's going to be what happens again. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. For me also, I think that was also last year somewhere, maybe the beginning of 2025. One of the things that I was doing, I was checking all the time in my cycle tracking app. So I use Read Your Body, I'm tracking my temperature. And multiple times a day, I would check what day of my luteal phase I was at. And that made me kind of obsessively using the app, but it's not going to give more information. It's not going to change. I was like analyzing it, seeing if I could somehow interpret based on, I don't know, any of the symptoms, any of the basal body temperature patterns, mucus patterns, ovulation pattern, like anything, like figure out if I could somehow, from this data that I had put in myself, so I knew what data was in there, but somehow based on that, figure out if it was a yes or a no. It's like, again, like trying to find the answer, trying to find that control. I made myself crazy with that. So then a coach recommended me to try and count to 100 times, not opening the app when I wanted to. Say I can open it once a day and then not anymore. And then every time I want to and don't open it, count a number until 100. But if in between there's a moment that I open it, I just start from 0 again. I never made it to 100, I can tell you. But it was kind of helpful. It was kind of reminding me that, okay, I am in control of how many times I can open the app. And it gave me a little bit of a something that I can hold on to, or something that I can work towards. So yeah, but it has its limits. Yeah.
What else has been helpful for you?
Well, in line with that, this year, I've been telling myself every day that is day 3 of my luteal phase. Because on day 3 of my luteal phase, nothing is happening. There's still a long time to go. And I use it as a way to block my mind of thinking about what day it actually is. And of course, obviously, I know it's not day 3 for 1.5 weeks. But I'm just telling myself every day, it's day 3, it's day 3, it's day 3. So I feel it's less hard. It's weird because I would say that it feels less like the days are passing by very slowly, which is weird because I'm saying that it's day 3 for a week. days are not passing at all. But yeah, somehow that helped me. I can't really explain it, but that helped me put my mind on something else.
Yeah, I've also found it really helpful to try to forget what day it is.
Yeah.
Try not to count. It's usually by the time I get to the second week that I'm starting to count, when should I be expecting my period? Like, whereas previously it was really like every day counting down, how am I going to make it another week or however long before I can test. It's just feels interminable.
Yeah. Yes. I'm just curious, do you feel at this moment, like you said that you are kind of assuming that you're not pregnant, but you are sometimes dreaming a little bit on a leash. Do you feel like that all the time, or is it changing also from day to day? Like how stable do you feel in that situation?
I think that I have been quite measured in how much I'm letting myself imagine. The hardest times is when I have a really strong specific symptom or something that feels different, where I'm kind of imagining like this could be a very specific pregnancy symptom that I haven't had before. And then I start thinking, well, what if I'm pregnant? What if I'm pregnant? And I think just knowing the dialogue that I'm having, if you were to watch my brain, it's literally like a back and forth between, well, okay, but I have these symptoms, and what if I'm pregnant, and what would I do if I was pregnant, and how would it feel, and how would I tell people, and all these kind of imaginary things. And then I will literally say to myself, don't get your hopes up too much. It's probably nothing, like you're probably not pregnant. Like I'm literally telling myself that. And then the response is, but what if I am pregnant? And, and then it just keeps going, round and round and round. So, yeah.
So it's these conversations that you're literally having with yourself.
It is literally a dialogue with myself over and over, the same conversation back and forth. But what if I am? But you're probably not. But what if I am? But you're probably not, over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah. What about, you're also still tracking your basal body temperature, right? How's that for you? Not doing it at all anymore?
No, I stopped tracking my basal body temperature a few months after my miscarriage. I think once we started trying again, I was finding that the first thing that I was doing in the morning, every morning, was taking off my temp drop device, uploading the results into my app, and it just became that it was contributing to the just obsessive state that I was in. It was like the very first thing I did in the morning, and the data that I was getting at that point after over a year of tracking my basal body temperature just didn't feel that helpful to be worth it. And I was trying to just rid myself of as many things that made me feel obsessive and just kind of like loosen my grip slightly, because so no, I actually haven't tracked my basal body temperature for over a year now.
Yeah, for me, I'm still tracking my basal body temperature. I did switch at some point to using an Oura ring. I was always taking it with a thermometer, and I found that quite stressful. I noticed that when it was in my mouth, I was like, okay, I hope the temperature is going to be high enough, like in the luteal phase. And thankfully, my sister lent me her Oura ring, so I've been using that. But there again, I can relate to what you're saying. I got to a state where usually in the morning I check it in the luteal phase and I'm like, I hope it's going to be high enough. So it can still cause distress, and I wanted to reduce that. So what I do now is I track my temperature only around ovulation. So I start at some point mid-follicular phase, and because my cycle is changing in length because of the PCOS, sometimes it's like a couple of days that I'm tracking it, sometimes it's over a week. It depends a little bit on at what time I start. And then like usually even one day of a high temperature, I'm like, okay, so now I know that I ovulated. But yeah, I switched to only tracking a couple of days because of the same reason that you're saying, but I do still find it helpful. And sometimes, on the other hand, it helps me to track a little bit more because it gives me something to do. Even though I can't control it, it does give me something to do. It gives me some information I can add to my app. Like it's a practical
Yeah, it
thing.
makes you feel more active, or like there's something that you can be doing
Yeah.
in a situation that can feel very out of your control.
Yeah, so I'm changing it a little bit depending on where I am at in the process. But I never stopped
yeah.
completely so far.
Yeah.
One thing that I was thinking about is what I noticed also in this 2-week wait is how different the process is for me and my partner. He is always hoping that I get pregnant, but it's not so much on top of his mind. I was thinking about why is that, and I'm curious what you think. But I think it is really just because it is so much in our body, and our body is reminding us all the time. So these symptoms, whatever is happening, and then the tracking, the observations that we make about the temperature or whatever, it's just, you can't run away from it. You can't just close it, or at least I can't just switch it off, put it in a box. No, it's always with us.
Yeah, it's hard to lose track of, where I think when you're on the outside, I'm often getting questions of like just trying to figure out where I'm at and what phase I'm in, and you know, when is your period due again, and like, are you fertile right now? It's always kind of like, did you finish your period already? Are you still bleeding? Like, they're not in the body seeing the blood, seeing the cervical fluid, whatever it is, feeling that shift into the luteal phase where it's like, okay, I can feel my energy drop and I'm moving into that next phase. Like, I can intuitively at this point know where I am. And for them, it's just very kind of like through what's the word? It's kind of in a box. Like, I can't read you most of the time unless you're showing very strong signs of PMS.
Sometimes it's clear.
Sometimes it's very clear. Sometimes he knows when my period is due before I do. But yeah, most of the time it's just harder to interpret. And so I think for a man, it's probably easier in a sense of it's easier to detach and not. Well, actually, that's an assumption. Maybe for some men, they are really anxiously counting down the days and tracking, but that hasn't been my experience. It's been more kind of this like slightly more distant like approach of just observing and asking questions. Yeah, maybe people could share in the comments or on social media if there's anything that you find particularly challenging about the 2-week wait that we haven't talked about, or any strategies that you found most helpful for getting through. I think that would be really interesting for people to read. Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode today. Next episode is going to be a very interesting one because Miriam is going to share an update about where she is at this moment in her trying to conceive journey. So stay tuned for that. Is there anything you'd like to say already about that as like a preview or
a little teaser?
A teaser.
I've got some big updates, so stay tuned. Yeah, it should be an interesting one.
Looking forward to hear about that. And also, if you are interested in sharing your own story on the podcast, please reach out to us. We're looking forward to hosting more people here, so please let us know. And otherwise, we're looking forward to seeing you in a new episode. See you in 2 weeks.
Thanks for listening, everyone. See you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and share this podcast with a friend who is going through infertility. If you have any questions or would like to share your story on a future episode, please find us on Substack and Instagram. The links will be in the show notes. See you in 2 weeks.